Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Mediwake.
I'm Lindsey Deluce.
And I'm Kelsey McEwen.
Welcome to CTV Your Morning, the podcast.
Today on the podcast, a new push to detect cancer in its earliest stages. We're going to take a closer look at the groundbreaking new work the Princess Margaret Hospital is doing to boost survival rates for cancer patients.
And it's an agricultural breakthrough that could cut food costs and help the environment. We find out about plants that produce their own fertilizer.
And remember to start your day with us live weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, 7 to 10 a.m. Atlantic on CTV CTV News Channel, and now on Crave.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. We have a great episode for you today.
Coming up in just a moment, the power of simple acts of kindness and how they can change the trajectory of someone's life. We know the holiday season can be busy, it can be stressful, and this conversation is an important reminder that giving back and making an impact can be done in simple, thoughtful ways, and that our actions and our words go a long way.
And speaking of giving back, every single person has been or knows someone affected by cancer in some shape or form. And the Princess Margaret Hospital in Toronto is leading a new dedicated center for early cancer detection, all thanks to a huge donation.
The Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation is creating a new facility that could help catch cancer early and boost survival rates. With cancer, early detection, we know, is half the battle. A 4-week delay can boost the chance of death by 10%. And despite that, about half the cases found here in Canada are diagnosed only once the disease has reached a more advanced stage. So here to tell us more about this work is Dr. Keith Stewart. He's director of the Princess Margaret Cancer Centre, and Piper Gillis. She is an Olympic ice dancer and an ovarian cancer survivor. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Big day yesterday with the announcement. We appreciate you coming on this morning. It's a $50 million donation, and it's allowing Princess Margaret to establish the Peter Gilligan Centre for Early Cancer Detection. Talk to us about the work that's going to be done there.
Well, thanks to the generosity of Mr. Gilligan, we have this tremendous opportunity to try and help find more cancers early while they're still curable.
Yeah.
You know, 90% of cancers found early can be cured.
90%?
90%. Of many cancers. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how you can find the earliest markers of a cancer, develop technologies or improve them to usually using blood tests instead of invasive technologies to actually find the cancer, and then of course look at ways we can intercept it before it becomes more advanced.
This really is a response to the data that has been collected and been reported over the years. I mean, I've done it many times in my career. Nearly half of Canadians we know develop cancer, or somebody they love develops cancer at some point in their lives. A quarter of those people will die from it. What kinds of barriers exist right now that prevent the early diagnosis that we need?
Well, some of the new technologies, of course, are only still in the research phase. They're being explored to see what the value is, how often we find a rare cancer, how early the stage is. But I think our tremendous scientific team, with the generosity of the Peter Gilligan, is going to really make advances which don't just impact Toronto, they'll impact all of Canada, and they'll impact people around the world.
Yeah, incredible. Piper, you were diagnosed with cervical cancer at Princess Margaret. So walk us through what happened. At what point in your diagnosis was it found to have cancer?
I was very lucky. It was stage 1. I was basically from October to December. There was just a period of time where we didn't know what it was. But as of January 16th, I knew it was stage 1 ovarian cancer, and luckily they did surgery right away. I didn't have to do any further chemotherapy or radiation, any of that kind of stuff. So again, I'm a prime example of what early detection looks like, and I think, again, having funds like this can really impact people's lives, and it has not changed my career at all. It's, I guess, more empowered me, again, to share my story and almost bring people hope that, you know, cancer isn't the end of your life. Like, you can still thrive and do amazing things.
Yeah, and your story, I mean, you're an athlete, so you would have known your body really well. You would have known when something was off. But for anybody in this country, and so many people, if there's any kind of a barrier to accessing health care, you're looking at a later and later diagnosis, which is why centers like this are so crucial. Cervical cancer, we know, has a 5-year survival rate of 44%. Means you're an exception. So you not only this, but you lost your mom to brain cancer as well. So how did you overcome the barriers that Dr. Stewart was talking about?
I just found the right doctor. I found Princess Margaret. I think they supported me every step of the way. And I think, again, having technology like that, they knew that in the place that I was, it wasn't so serious. So they were very quick, very fast at acting in this, removing it. And again, I think now I just have to monitor it the rest of my life, and I think that's okay. But yeah, it's
because you're here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Incredible. For both of you, what does it mean to be able to open an early detection center like this?
Well, I think we need to actually create the evidence that this is going to help people. We need to build a clinic, actually, that will take people in who are at high risk, that we've identified are at risk, like Piper now, for the rest of her life, essentially, is going to have to be monitored quite closely, at least over the next few years. And we need to have a place where we can see them and where we can deliver this technology. I think that's one of the important things. And of course, our basic scientists need to be supported to keep advancing.
Yeah, and I'll give the last word to you, Piper. As a survivor, what does this mean to you to see a clinic like this opening?
I think it's so incredible. I think it gives people some hope that, you know, the fear of cancer is shocking for everyone, but I think if, again, diagnosed early, it won't be so scary because there is a place that they can go and feel, you know what, like they've done the technology, they've done the research, and, you know, there is hope that there is a fear without cancer.
Yeah, giving more hope is what everybody needs. Thank you both for coming in today.
Thank you for having us.
It is a breakthrough in agriculture science that could save farmers money and help protect the environment. Scientists at the University of California, Davis have genetically engineered a type of wheat that produces its own fertilizer. Here to explain why this is such a big deal is CTV's science and technology specialist, Dan Riskin. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, how was this developed? How was this wheat developed?
So some plants can just get nitrogen out of the air, but they don't do it themselves. They have to have bacteria help them do it. So like soybeans, you don't have to put nitrogen fertilizer on soybeans because they can just pull it out of the air thanks to bacteria. But a lot of plants can't do that. And a lot of plants that we eat that we really need to grow can't do that. And that's why we need nitrogen fertilizer to make those plants grow. One of those is wheat. Wheat is the #2 cereal crop in the world. 18% of the nitrogen fertilizer used in the world goes to wheat crops. And we need wheat because we love bread.
Love bread.
We love butter with salt in it.
Salt, don't we?
We do. We do love salt.
Is that not the most shocking information of the day? She went for so long with unsalted butter.
I was like lying on the floor in the fetal position while you were talking about that because it was so exciting. So anyway, wheat is important and it doesn't make its own nitrogen fertilizer, but researchers at UC Davis have been trying to find a way to basically train this plant to do the trick that these other plants do, and they've made a breakthrough.
Okay, so what is the breakthrough?
The breakthrough is that you want to find a way to get those bacteria that do the job for them, the bacteria that pull the nitrogen out of the air. You need a way to make those bacteria live against the roots of this plant. And the way that the normal plants do it is they have these nodules, these little balls in their roots where the bacteria can live. Wheat doesn't have that. And so what they've done is they've given the wheat this ability to make too much of a protein called apigenin, which makes a film sort of appear on the roots, and the bacteria can live under that film. And so they just colonize it, and they start grabbing nitrogen out of the sky, and they start releasing nitrogen into the roots, and the wheat plants are taking up that nitrogen and using it as fertilizer, so you don't have to dump fertilizer on the crops.
So I'm assuming, I'm gonna ask you this question, I think I know the answer here, but saving farmers money
is good.
Right, and
Yeah.
how much are we talking really?
Well,
I mean, this is significant,
it's
right?
a huge expense for farmers to fertilize. You'd still need phosphorus fertilizer, but the thing about fertilizer is that it's a real Goldilocks problem. If you don't use it, your crops don't grow as much, but if you use too much, it goes into the waterways and you get eutrophication, you know, the algae all over the place. It's really bad for the environment if you have too much. And so farmers are in a tough spot with fertilizer where they have to use it, they have to use just the right amount, they have to get the right amounts on different parts of their, it's a giant pain. And so to have a crop that doesn't require nitrogen fertilizer at all saves that whole problem environmentally. It saves the cost of the fertilizer, which is significant. And to make that fertilizer takes a ton of energy. And so now that energy doesn't need to be used industrially to make that fertilizer because the plants are going to be able to make their own nitrogen. So in order for this to take hold, people have to adopt this crop. They have to be cool with a genetically modified crop, which a lot of people get woo-woo about.
Can we stop at that
Sure.
point for a second? Because what's the feedback on that?
Well, people, the letters GM freak a lot of people out. Genetically modified, they go, whoa, hang on, I want my plants to be natural. But we have been changing plants through selective breeding since we've been using plants, since the dawn of agriculture. And so we have made wheat what it is today in a very sort of archaic way of breeding it. We just have really powerful tools now to do it more quickly. And so now genetically modifying something using CRISPR to get it to take a giant step forward in its evolution is a way to feed people more effectively, save the environment, use less energy. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win, but people have to be on board for it. And what we've learned is that a bunch of scientists saying, it's good for you, so do what I say, isn't a very effective way. People don't like it when scientists do that. So it's got to be a grassroots thing where people have to sort of, the people who are thinking about food and thinking about how we make a sustainable future need to be on board to help sort of convert people over to the GM future. the knee-jerk reaction is everybody's going to genetically modify their babies to have blue eyes, and it's freaky and it's a scary future.
Right.
But it's also a wonderful future. Those tools can be used for bad things, but they can also be used to make us, more sustainable, to feed people who need the food, to make crops easier for people to grow in poor economies. I mean, there's just so many wins to this. So it's just a really nice story.
I would love to end on that note. It's so positive. Dan Riskin, always good to see you. Thank you.
Good seeing you. Thanks.
Barbara grew up in an abusive household, and she left school to take care of her younger siblings. Years later, Barbara had to live on social assistance while raising 3 kids of her own. Although her future looked tough, it was the small acts of kindness by a neighbor and a piano teacher that changed the trajectory of her life. Angie Peters is the president and CEO of Yonge Street Mission, and Barbara was her mom. She's joining us today to tell us more about the power of giving back in simple ways. I love the story of both your mom and of you. How did the neighbor and this piano teacher change the outcome for you and ultimately for your family, too?
Yeah, thanks, Anne-Marie, and it's great to be here. Thank you. When you think about family and generational poverty, which my mother came out of, it can change in one generation because of the acts of these 2 people, the piano teacher and Pat, the neighbor. And so you asked about the impact on me. Well, the impact on me was that my mom was stronger, right? And I saw my mom overcome challenges in her life that up to that point she hadn't been able to do because somebody saw her, because somebody cared for her. So because of that, I had the courage I grew up believing I could do things. I grew up believing my life could be different. And so the things that people did for my mom.
Can you give us a couple examples of those small things that made the big impact that we're talking about today?
Yeah, like, so when you grow up in poverty, in that culture, there's things you don't know that you don't know. You don't know how to dress. I didn't know my shoes were supposed to be clean. I didn't know anything about how to show up. I didn't have the same teaching around social graces or how to express your anger or any of that stuff. So you might see people showing up, even though they've got potential, differently than they could. And there were many people in my life that just extended little kindnesses, that saw something in me and said, coached me on how to show up and how to handle things.
Offered you free piano lessons.
Offered me piano lessons, exactly. So it's those things, those little investments of just seeing me and helping me adapt so that I could be successful.
And now you're CEO of one of the largest charities in the country.
Yes.
You've got 2 kids who've done post-secondary, wonderful children who I've met. In this country right now, there are around 4 million Canadians who live below the poverty line, which means this could be somebody in your circle, whether it's your neighbor, someone you work with, another person in your community. You never know who is struggling. So then how can we start to be more intentional and in tune with this and then start to give back in the ways that people give back to your mom?
Yeah. So the book talks a lot about different ways to do that, but just really briefly, I think there's 2 categories. One category where your path never crosses with people experiencing poverty, so it's really hard to know how to get started. Another path when it does. If you are in a neighborhood where you do cross paths with people experiencing challenges, it's really simple. It's listen, it's pay attention. Because if you do pay attention, you'll see the family that's struggling, and maybe you can help with the groceries, or you can offer a drive, or you can do different things that make the difference for them to be able to get by. And if you never cross paths with people experiencing poverty, I always suggest that people go volunteer at an agency that's helping people, the kind of people they want to help. When their heart breaks, when they think about poverty, if it's children or homeless, go volunteer there, and you will learn a little bit more about how you can get started.
You mentioned your book, and I was very fortunate enough to do the launch of this book, which 100% changed how our family views helping. And the title says it all. It's Just Act. Find what you can do in your life. Like the piano teacher who's like, I'm just going to give you free piano lessons, but it gave you this sense of belonging.
Yes.
What are some of the ways that people can get involved around the holidays? Either volunteering, like you said, or if they want to be able to help with groceries or something like that, where do they go to start?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time talking to my colleagues across the country at agencies like the Yonge Street Mission.
Yeah.
We all have the same issues this time of year. And so the key things that people can do are donate, because food, we serve thousands of meals. We give away so many groceries this time of year. And so for your local agency, like the Young Street Mission, if you just donate, because we can buy the right kind of food, we can buy it in bulk cheaper, and we can give more away. Volunteer at the food bank or give toys. So think about it. What's the first thing people ask your kids when they go back to school?
What'd you get for Christmas?
What'd you get for Christmas? And think about the pressure. Budgets are strained this time of year for everybody. If you're living on very low
Food or
income,
toys?
Food or toys. And there's still the rent.
Yeah.
And the other bills. So you think it may be a small thing, food or toys, but really it's helping a family celebrate a holiday and give that to their kids. And you know how that feels for a parent. You want to give that to your kids.
Yeah.
So food, toys, volunteering. If you volunteer at an agency, spend some time talking to people. It's a great way to start to understand and identify maybe what your next Just Act will be.
Angie Peters, I'm so glad that you wrote this book, Just Act. It's full of such great information, lots of research from your many years in the sector. And I'm just really proud to know you as well. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you.
So right now, there are 10 million Canadians who are currently living in food insecure households. 10 million. That's the highest number that this country has seen in the last 20 years. Some of these people work full time or they have multiple jobs and they still are skipping meals to be able to afford housing and rent. Food banks, we know, play a critical role to help with this, especially during the holiday season. And Neil Hetherington, CEO of Daily Bread Food Bank, is here to tell us more about what is happening. Neil, good to have you here in studio.
Good morning.
First of all, how do those numbers translate, this 10 million number, how does that translate into what you see at the food bank?
It's what we see every single day. You know, I never thought 8 years ago when I first started at the Daily Bread Food Bank that we would get to the point that more than 1 in 10 Torontonians has to make use of the Daily Bread. And just day in and day out, the numbers continue to increase. We just released our stats about a month ago. 4.1 million visits to food banks in the city of Toronto. And in a country as wonderful as ours is, that just shouldn't be the case.
1 in 10 means probably somebody you know, somebody maybe that you work with, is having to make use of the food bank right now.
Absolutely. You know, there are examples where I've walked the lines and I see somebody and I'm like, hey, you know, we knew each other from, you know, perhaps a business engagement, and you question, you know, what's going on? Why is it that you're needing the food bank? You've got a job. But the reality is things have changed significantly. We have seen that 60% have university or college education as their background. More than 50% have full-time employment, and yet they need the food bank. That social contract that we used to have of you get an education, you get a job,
Yeah.
you work hard, you'll be fine, is not the case anymore.
So people are looking to help this time of year. I just finished asking you, like, how are you guys set up for this holiday season?
It's been really hard. We used to have to raise about $8 million per year. Now it's $40 million per year. And all that does is maintain our service levels across the city of Toronto. So it's been difficult.
Yeah, listen, I've been doing food bank stories for over 20 years. And I learned some things in a tour that you gave me recently at the Daily Bread Food Bank. And one of them is the importance of cash, which we don't think about. We think about cans. Tell us how cash is used at the food bank.
Well, it goes much further. It's still great when people donate food and drop it off at any fire hall, and we appreciate that. But when we have cash, it goes much, much further. As an example, there's an Ontario tax credit that gives farmers a tax credit for donating their crops to food banks. And so for about $1,800, we'll send a truck down to southwestern Ontario and pick up 56,000 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Fresh fruits and produce, which
Exactly.
is the stuff that is often missed.
And so that now is actually by far the majority of what we hand out at the food bank. It's fresh food.
Those numbers that you and I are talking about, though, aren't holiday numbers. Those are everyday numbers. Tell me about the numbers of people who used the food banks during the holiday season. Because that 10 million Canadians, that's not a special holiday number. That's an everyday number. How does that increase over the holidays?
So what we see is every single month, right across the country, about 2.8 million Canadians are making use of food banks every single month. In Toronto, it's about 330,000 per month. But 2.8 million right across the country. And again, I'm just going back, I said it already, a country as incredible as ours is, it should never be the case that anybody has to rely on food charity. And so what we're hopeful is that people will donate those cans, they'll donate those funds, but not everybody can do that. but every Canadian can advocate for change, and that means developing affordable housing, and it means making sure that people on disability have incomes that don't make them reliant on friends, family, and charity.
And again, that number of 1 in 10 means somebody you know in your circle of friends or work or whatever is having to access food banks. So you're helping people that you know.
Absolutely, you are.
All right, Neil, always great to have you on.
It's great to see you.
All the best
Anne-Marie.
to you and everybody who's volunteering and working hard down at the food bank at the Daily Bread Food Bank. Thanks.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. You're listening to Your Morning, the podcast, where we bring you some of the best conversations from our show every week. You can join us live on CTV every weekday, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, 7 to 10 a.m. Atlantic on CTV CTV News Channel, and now on Crave. Has the affordability crisis changed your dining out habits? Up to 75% of Canadians say they're dining out less frequently because of the rising cost of living. And if people can afford to spend money on restaurants, the way that they're dining points to some interesting trends that are happening right across the country. So here to take a look at them for us is Krista Face. She's the founder and publisher of Foodism. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, what kind of restaurants are Canadians leaning towards as they're sort of pulling back or adapting some of their dining out habits?
Yeah, so people are dining out less and they're being a lot more intentional with what they're dining out for. So they're still going to the fine dining restaurants, but they're being a lot more intentional and they save it for maybe special occasions or celebrations, and they're leaning more towards the kind of fast casual. So in the middle of fast food and fine dining is that fast casual pocket, and we're seeing a lot more diners doing that on weekdays, lunchtime, brunch, things like that.
Something really interesting you published that was fascinating to me is it's how people are also ordering when they're dining out. So what does that look like when it comes to you're placing your order with your server? How are people changing their habits?
Yeah, so again, to kind of cut down on costs, they're cutting some of the extras, if you will. So maybe they'll share some appetizers instead of getting their own. They'll cut down on dessert, which is so unfortunate because we all love dessert. And people are drinking a lot less.
Yes.
So something like 41% of people are drinking less this year than they were last year. And so that's the easiest thing that they're cutting from a bill, and that can bring your bill significantly down.
Speaking of bills, what are you seeing when it comes to tipping?
Tipping is, it's a funny one because we're a very generous nation. It's the US and Canada that being the highest tippers in the world.
Interesting.
However, the sentiment is we're getting tipping fatigue. And I think we've all been there where you get that screen flashed to you everywhere you go now, it seems, these days. So people want to tip, but they want to do it on their own terms and award exceptional service instead of being told to.
And I don't know if it's just me, I don't think that it is, but sometimes now when you get the machine that comes to you and it'll start at like 18%, 22%, 24%, I might not want to tip 18%, but the server is standing there and I feel this like awkward pressure to like not put in a dollar amount.
That's exactly what it is. And so we want to be able to do it on our own terms.
Yeah.
But we're such a polite nation, so we do end up tipping. And so they are winning in the sense that we all feel a little bit awkward and we do end up tipping the 18 and up. But I think generally it would be a lot more well received if we were able to do it based on what we thought the service was valued at versus what they tell us.
Something that you point out that I think has probably always been there but is maybe increasing now is solo dining has become more popular. Why is that?
Oh, yes, solo dining is massively on the rise.
Really?
It's up 28% than it was last year here in Canada.
Whoa, why?
Yes, I think people are just getting a lot more comfortable with it, and it's a really unique experience. There's a lot of other nations in the world that really value solo dining and set up their culture specifically for that, and we're seeing that adapted here, and we're seeing people go out, and my tip is solo dining gets you the best seat in the house. You either get to sit at the bar, at the chef's counter, or at the counter looking over the street, and you end up not needing a reservation. You can usually walk right in, and you just have this really fabulous time, and I think people are leaning into that a little bit more and treating themselves.
I have been a solo diner for many, many years. I am a big fan. I love to go to a restaurant and order something and eat by myself. It is such a nice treat. I'm glad people are figuring this out.
And restaurants are benefiting. You spend more per head solo dining than you would in a group.
Oh, interesting, because you're not sharing.
Yes, and so you're treating yourself a little bit more.
Oh, I like that. Okay, if they aren't heading out to a restaurant, they're definitely ordering in. So what can you tell us about delivery apps?
Delivery apps are absolutely on the rise. They are becoming more of a necessity than a treat. I think when they first came out, it was that kind of weekend treat that you would order in. Now it's become a weekday necessity, and people tend to be seeing it as part of their weekly meal plan, is that they'll order delivery once or twice a week. And, you know, you can find so much on delivery apps these days. It used to be just your fast food, but now you can get, you know, Michelin recommended restaurants on there for takeout. You can order really good food on these delivery apps, and also your groceries and just about everything under the sun. So they really are becoming a part of people's weekday schedule.
You know, you've been studying and looking and compiling all the data on trends and things that are happening. What was the biggest surprise or takeaway for you?
I think the solo dining was really interesting. Also, the fact that about 40% of people are drinking less. And so there really is this this look towards mindfulness and health. And what I love is that then on the flip side, you're seeing the restaurant scene really have to adapt to that. And it's very rare that you go in somewhere now and your only options are water, sparkling water, or Diet Coke.
This was a lot of fun, Krista. Thanks for coming in.
Of course, thank you.
The price of farmland is soaring in Canada, and it's just another thing threatening our food production. Farmland values have quadrupled in price over the last 20 years. That's preventing many from entering the farming industry. In response, the National Farmers Union is now pushing for a guaranteed annual income to help keep this industry afloat. Joining us this morning with more details is Phil Mount. He's the Vice President of Policy at the National Farmers Union. Great to have you here with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie.
This might be a new idea for people, so please set it up for us. Give us some of the details of this guaranteed annual income plan. How will it work?
Well, the main reason for calling for this guaranteed annual income, as you mentioned, is especially the difficulty for new and young farmers getting into the industry. And so what the membership is called for is a guaranteed income of $50,000 a year for the first 10 years. And that's on, obviously, on farms whose profits are less than $50,000 a year. So we're not talking about handouts for large corporate farms here. This is for new and young people who have, you know, as you mentioned, a particularly difficult time now, given the rising costs, not just of farmland, as you mentioned, but of inputs, which have been soaring in price over the last 5 years, particularly.
I think it might be a surprise to people, and I'd love for you to be able to reveal this for us, just how much it costs to actually farm. These are small, medium, and large businesses, and there's so many associated costs people don't think about. Buying seeds, equipment, paying staff. Can you break down for us a bit, what does it actually cost to own and run a farm in Canada?
Well, that's a huge question, Anne-Marie, because of course, it all depends which sector the farm is in. So, for example, my wife and I are sheep farmers, and we have costs that other farmers won't have. But I'll say, like, the price of going to the abattoir, for example, has gone up by a third just in the last 5 years. But of course, you know, most farms will have costs like fuel. Others have separate costs, like crop farmers might have costs of propane to dry their crops, So it does depend on the sector, but as you say, it just seems to go on and on. There are no end to the income prices, the input prices on farms.
And they're not small costs either, always in the thousands. Net income for Canadian farmers fell, we know, by more than a quarter last year, so $3.3 billion. That is the largest decrease since 2018. So how far would $50,000 go in addressing the costs that farmers are facing, particular as we've done stories on this show, climate change is also affecting growing seasons as well?
Well, this is it, Anne-Marie. And so what we're not anticipating the $50,000 is going to do is set farmers up for their retirement. This is really just to actually keep them afloat for the first 10 years, when we know it's particularly difficult for farmers who are trying to reinvest in their farms and grow them and make them stable over the long term. It can be so difficult in those first 10 years. And so that's really all we're looking for here. As I say, we're not expecting this is going to set folks up for retirement. It's just basically keep them afloat.
Yeah, it's patching the roof. It's not replacing it. But it's important because it's the base of our food production in this country. The National Farmers Union is also calling for a cap on profits for Canada's major grocery chain. Why? Connect those dots for us. Why is that something that you're also pushing for?
Well, so one of the main reasons that farms are having difficulty is the value of the return that they're getting for what they're producing is not rising at the same rate as their costs. But that's been the case for 50 years now, and we haven't addressed it in this country. But the problem is on the price side, they're getting more and more concentrated. So the folks who are buying our produce are getting more and more concentrated, which in turn affects the price that they're paying. And we see in this country, we're down to 4 retailers in pretty much any province you go to.
Vice President of Policy at the National Farmers Union, Phil Mount. Really fascinating conversation this morning. We'll have you back again. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
The speed and the cost of building Montreal's new rapid transit system has some experts in other parts of this country looking on with envy. Phase 2 of the REM, as it's known, a network of fully automated and electric trains in the Montreal area, opened just last month. And analysts are contrasting the REM's success, or the REM's success, to other major transit projects in Canada, which, as we know, take decades to get up and running and are way overrun on their costs. For a closer look, we are joined this morning by Jeff Casello. He is a professor of transportation, engineering, and planning at the University of Waterloo. Good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie.
So construction on this line in Montreal began back in 2018. It's a 26-station project. It's expected to be done in 2027 with a connection to Montreal's international airport. Can we compare and contrast that to just a moment to Toronto's Eglinton Crosstown LRT? That started in 2011. After repeated delays, the LRT is not going to be done until 2031. We haven't even talked about costs yet. Why, first of all, is Montreal able to get their line up so quickly?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that Montreal did right, and they should really be applauded for. The first is that they thought about using existing rights of way. So they had an existing tunnel that was in the city. It worked for the alignment, and so they elected to use that for at least part of the alignment. The other thing that Montreal did was they took advantage and had the foresight to buy some alignment well before they started to build this project. And so they had basically the whole line. They already owned that property, and that really reduced the cost and the time to construct that project.
Experts often break down the cost of rail projects per kilometer of rail. So this line in Montreal is expected to cost $140 million per kilometer. By comparison, Toronto's Eglinton Crosstown LRT is supposed to be $700 million per kilometer. What factors are keeping the REM's costs down?
Yeah, I think that what we just talked about, the being able to reuse the existing tunnel was really important. The other thing that was really important was having the foresight to buy that land in advance. But the folks in Montreal did some really smart things. They standardized their station design. They used a single company to oversee the entire project. And they also had great alignment between government. And so the province, the city of Montreal, they really worked well together on this project, and that hasn't been the case on the Eglinton Crosstown line.
You know, not to leave out our friends in Ottawa who are also dealing with their own issue. Their project is at $5 billion with lots of problems and the cost still rising. Not everybody, however, is praising Montreal. This summer, passengers criticized the line for shutting down for 6 weeks. This is to prepare for the launch of Phase 2. What can be done to avoid similar service disruptions in the future so people still feel like they're getting their money's worth?
Yeah, you know, whenever we launch, Anne-Marie, a really big public project, what we want to do is we want to deliver high quality, excellent service right out of the gate. And that's not always possible. I mean, the same way that there are bugs whenever you start anything new, there's always going to be challenges when you launch a new transit project. Now, 6 weeks seems like a very long time, but if you contrast that to the challenges that they had in Ottawa with the snow problems, the door closing problems, all of those things, I think what it says is just as those who deliver public agency for taxpayers, we have to be really careful and really thoughtful about how we deliver these high value, high cost projects in a way that gives the public confidence and that so that it works, again, right out of the gate for us.
Jeff, what lessons should other major Canadian cities learn from Montreal when they're enacting their own transit projects?
Yeah, I think maybe the most important thing is to get the private sector who's helping to deliver this project, get them a financial stake in the project. Right now, the way this system works is the CDPQ is paying for this project up front, and then they're going to derive all the revenue from the operations for 99 years. So if you have a stake in how much it costs to build this project, and then you can recover the revenue going forward, you're going to do it in a much more effective way.
I think they should all just check in with you. You seem to have a lot of information about how all these projects are run well and what to do and what not to do. I say just give you the consulting fees, make it cheaper.
I'm ready to go. Let's do that. Maybe we could talk some about whether or not that was Superman flying over the skies, because I want to get to the bottom of that.
See, you support my theory. I knew you were a smart guy. Jeff Casello, Professor of Transportation, Engineering, and Planning at the University of Waterloo. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Nice to see it.
A new hockey romance series is coming to a screen near you.
We will be seeing each other a lot.
Yeah, Boston and Montreal play against each other often.
It's called Heated Rivalry. It is a 6-part series based off the best-selling books. It's about 2 rising hockey stars who are rivals on the ice but start hooking up off the ice. So good. Hudson Williams and Connor Story play the 2 lead roles. They are joining us in studio this morning. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Great to meet both of you. Okay, this show has a huge following. It hasn't even hit the airwaves yet. It hasn't been aired yet. Did you know about this huge fan base based on the series?
I didn't. I quickly found out about them through a little Google search and kind of feeling the passion, but that's about it.
Yeah,
no,
it's the same. After I did the audition, I obviously looked into it. I started asking around, and I actually knew a solid amount of people who did know these books.
Oh yeah, there is a huge group of people that know these books.
Yeah.
Connor, let's talk about your character. You're playing Ilya. He's a Russian hockey player. I was creeping through comments, and one fan. Can I read what one fan wrote?
Oh God, here we go.
Okay. Quote, casting shook the book and he fell out.
Yeah.
That's a good line. So safe to say people are really pumped that you were cast in this role. What's your take on your character?
Yeah, I think Ilya, one, is super interesting. I think he's kind of a dichotomy. You know, coming from Russia, I think he has like a natural stoicism about him on the outside, but also pairing that with being really charismatic and funny. And I think people really just fall for someone that's going through something on the inside and doesn't show it, so you can feel for them, but also want better for them. So yeah.
And Hudson, we feel for your character as well. Seems to struggle with his sexuality. Where do you think that struggle, where's the root of that? Where do you think that comes from?
I think it comes from his flawed idea of what perfect is. You know, I think he has this manicured and disciplined image, and I think his sexuality to him doesn't fit in. And it's a flawed idea, but it's through his society. I think that's kind of how he came to believe what that means to him.
You guys both play hockey players. Do you skate? Do you play hockey? Are you good at it?
Now we do.
You do?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a few months. I would really be interested to see if we just like strapped on some skates right now and just had to go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the expression that everyone was saying was like, you look pretty good from here up. But anything other than that, I think is a dead giveaway.
The legs?
Yeah. I got told I look really good without a puck, and then as soon as a puck is introduced, it's just Bambi.
It's kind of like a baby, right? You watch the baby with the toy, and they just kind of do that. You know?
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Well, kudos to your acting for that, by the way. Also, kudos to your acting. Guys, I was watching the first episode, and I was like this, making sure nobody else was around. These episodes are like spicy.
Yeah.
Your characters have some really intimate scenes with one another. So talk to me about how you shoot those. I'm assuming there's an intimacy coordinator there.
Totally.
What is that like?
Yeah, it pretty much, I mean, Chayla Hunter was our intimacy coordinator, and she was pretty much the first person that we talked to. Yeah, I think, honestly, it really starts with just really long conversations about being like, what are you comfortable with? That can look like, your kisses can look like this, this, and this. Touching can look like this, this, and this. Closeness can look like this, this, and this. And really just getting an honest view from each of us, and then marrying those and seeing
what each of us is comfortable with, establishing those boundaries. And then I think Jacob, Chayla, and both of us were good with a sense of fun on set. It didn't have to be heavy. It didn't have to be too scared, because at the end of the day, it can't feel like we're afraid of each other.
Yeah.
Luckily, I mean, luckily Hudson and I both kind of have the same energy of being like, like, I'm cool with anything. Let's do this. Whatever serves a story and looks good, that's what I'm here for, you know?
Well, it's awesome to watch. Hudson and Connor, thank you both for coming in today. We really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Congrats on the show.
Thank you.
We're so glad you joined us today.
If you want more great conversations, don't forget, download or hit subscribe to Your Morning, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you happen to get your podcasts.
And of course, you got to watch us live weekday mornings on CTV CTV News Channel or catch up on old episodes on Crave. Start your morning with us.